to Tokyo in Japan. We are in the Yamaha shop at the Ginza, which is the main shopping street here in Tokyo, an amazing place. And I have the huge privilege and pleasure today to meet one of my heroes, especially as a low horn player, Mr. Roger Bobo. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm thrilled to be here. I've been watching you, and you're so great, and I'm glad to be one of the people now.
You are one of the people, you are one of the horn hangouters. And
yeah,
I know there are many, many people around the world who are going to be thrilled to be watching this, because you are really a legend. You are a tuba legend, a brass legend, and it's quite a lot to live up to, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it helps that I'm old.
Oh, not that old, come on.
No, that's true.
Why does it help that you're old?
Because I have more history to look back at.
You have many students here. You have students all over the world. When I told them I was going to be interviewing you, there was a huge rush of enthusiasm from the tuba world. You've touched many, many tuba players, not only tuba players, but a lot of brass players over the years. And now you're teaching here in Japan. How many students do you have here?
In Japan, I probably have about 15.
And what's a normal day for you here?
A normal day is I do my personal work in the morning, and I teach maybe at 11 o'clock and at 1 o'clock and at 2 o'clock.
You just got back from Mexico as well.
Yes.
How are the tuba players in Mexico?
Incredible. Big surprise. They were wonderful. They were sweet people. They were enthusiastic. They were quick. And they had the motor responses to take my suggestions and make them work very quickly.
You travel really all around the world doing all your master classes and conducting as well. Do you find there's a similarity to the problems that students face all around the world, or can you say like the Japanese tuba players have these challenges, the German tuba players have another challenge, or do you find that students in general struggle with the same things?
There are two answers. First of all, they all struggle with the same things. Functioning. Some of them are just musical from the heart, and some of them, other countries, are very rigid and don't understand. For example, in Japan, the Western style of making music is a little foreign still.
That's elegantly put. I find often that there's a lot of emphasis on perfection in some of the Asian countries especially, and as you say, the Western style of music making, that's a process being learned. On the other hand, there's other countries where you go to, they play all with heart and don't have the physical technique behind it. How do you combat, do you bring the two together?
Well, of course I try, but you know, I think in the European countries, in Germany and France and Italy, Spain, it's all coming together all by itself. You know, you just nudge a little bit, push a little bit, and there's not any big adjustments that you have to make. But sometimes in Asia, you have to write down every dynamic and then enforce it by being stubborn.
When you say you have to nudge and push a little bit, how do you nudge and push the students a little bit? I've seen your master classes on YouTube, which I really recommend, by the way. All you guys should get on YouTube and watch these great master classes. But what is your policy for nudging and encouraging?
Well, there are two ways of teaching. First of all, you teach how to function on the instrument. We all know that. And you teach musicality.
Can you teach musicality?
Yes. And some people, it's easier than other people, but I think in most places of the world, everybody has it. And if you can get the student to understand it, then they'll discover a way to do it themselves. Their own physiology, their own body will learn how to do that. If it becomes necessary, we talk about what physically has to be done.
Do you get all these questions like, where do you put the tongue for this note, and how do I put my cheeks for this note? I get these all the time at master classes. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever said this, but my joke is, look it up on Google.
You can look up everything on Google.
Just look up tuba high register and it'll explain it as well as I can. No, that's not entirely true.
Yeah, well, it's hard to get the students out of this perfection box where, I mean, of course, these days there are very few jobs, and you have a hard time as a student to get to the top, to claw your way to the top. So of course they want to be as perfect as they can, but to get the musicality across, that's a challenge for the teachers, I think, these days. But I'm happy you say that you think it can be taught.
Unfortunately for the students, I sing a lot. And I have this complex deep down inside that maybe I think I'm Pavarotti.
Well, there must have been worse things than being Pavarotti.
Yeah, but
go on.
When Pavarotti does it, it works. And so.
Do you sing in the Pavarotti? Are you a tenor, or are you an operatic tenor?
No, I'm baritone.
Baritone. Bless and dorm.
And especially since I quit playing the tuba, then I don't have the instrument to demonstrate. So I sing it.
Do you never play? Not for fun?
No.
No?
No.
Do you miss it? Does your body miss it?
Sometimes. For example, I just came from Mexico, and there was great players there, and they were all playing. And I said, God, I wish I could just play one concert. Yeah. But I don't sound as well as I used to.
Well,
to put it mildly.
Put it mildly. I'm not sure quite if you don't even get it out at home and have a little tootle.
Not so much.
No, but you sing, and that's your the voice is the most natural instrument, yeah. I think.
Yeah, and it works pretty well. I try not to overdo it. Sometimes when somebody doesn't use enough air, and the sound just isn't there, you know that. Then I'll get this far away from their ear, and I'll be Pavarotti, and they must fill the horn and make sound. And then I back away, and they're sounding okay. It's embarrassingly successful.
That's a great trick. I know where to come next time where I'm. No, singing is a really, really fantastic way of helping people to understand also the musical lines, I find, because if you can sing it, you can play it. And so many people can't sing. For example, Mozart Horn Concerto, they practice it and practice it and practice it, and they forget that there's music in there. And you make them sing it, and of course at the beginning it's like... La, la, la.
It depends on where you are.
Ah.
In Holland, can't you sing? No. Well, please sing this. Italy, can you sing? Of course! Of course I can sing. And then they do it and it sounds great. And I say, please play like that. And they go, Mamma mia, what a good idea. And it works. It works, and it sounds simplistic, but it really works.
How about your students here in Japan? Do they like to sing?
They can. I think they have a lot of karaoke experience.
Now that's a good idea. Maybe we should take our students, the next master class we do, we should take our students down to a karaoke place.
That's not a bad idea.
No, or travel around with a portable karaoke machine.
But most of the time, by the time they start singing, they're pretty uninhibited.
That's true, which is not so good for tuba playing, of course.
No.
So you are planning to carry on traveling around the world. I hear your time in Japan is coming to an end.
Well, I'm not sure about that. My time at the Musashino Academy of Music has ended, or it will end in a few months. And after that, I have work, enough master classes all over the world. And as far as the future is concerned, I have 3 choices right now. One is Italy, which I'm sort of pulling for. I want to go back and work with the Italian youth orchestra, the Orchestra Giovanile, which I worked with for 15 years, and it was very successful. And I don't want to boast.
You can boast as much as you want.
Okay, well then,
These are the horn hangouts. We want you to boast. That's what you're here for.
every brass section in every Italian orchestra has students that played with me in the Orchestra Giovanile.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That is absolutely
I'm
fantastic.
very, very proud of that. And some of them have become very, very brilliant soloists. So I would love to go back and do that. There's another music school in Japan that I can go to, and it's a good job, but I think it's time to move on. And I just came back from Mexico and had one of the most wonderful pedagogical experiences of my life.
What made it so special there?
The response, the feedback, it was instant and positive. And as I said, they were quick, they were musical. Some of these kids were really naturally musical, and they all worked very hard to make it sound good, and that they were all successful.
Fantastic.
And I have to tell you one story. I had a brass quintet, very looking, not such great instruments, sousaphone, and they lived in a town up in the mountains, and Spanish was their second language. Miche was their first language.
Miche?
Yeah,
Never heard of that.
Yeah. They were wonderful and so positive, and I talked about it, and I just talked it up how much I enjoyed it. And they've invited me to come to their city in the mountains, 3,000 people, to stay for 2 months in September and October. And I'm doing it.
That's
I don't
fantastic.
care what else anybody offers me, I'm going there. And I'm looking forward to it as a social thing. I mean, it's an adventure.
It's an adventure.
It's
absolutely.
an adventure. And there's, you know, in Germany, probably in Australia, in America, there's always one city that specializes, you know, that's where all the brass players come from.
And that's the space.
That's it. That's near Oaxaca. And Oaxaca, you know, I think there's probably 30 or 40 tubists.
So you're going to revolutionize brass playing in Mexico again. You've revolutionized it all over the place.
I am enormously tempted. And essentially I've been invited, and for those 2 months I have really been invited, and I'm going.
That's great. Oh, that's really great news. Well, after you've been there, we'll get you back on, and you can tell us about all the adventures.
I'm sure there's going to be some things to tell.
Well, you are quite a big Facebooker, actually, and isn't this a wonderful way of keeping in touch with everybody?
When I first heard of Facebook, somebody said, "Oh, that's for kids, you know, that's for high school kids, you know." And then I got into it, and I found myself enjoying it enormously. And frankly, I think half of my contacts for jobs, to get a job, you know, in Scandinavia or Spain or Australia, half of those things come from Facebook. Somebody I met in Facebook. Hey, I'd really like to come there. Okay, let me see what I'll do. And then they send me back something, and I said, "Can you get any money?"
Yeah, that's always the next.
Everybody would like it,
Yeah.
and then it works. A lot of it works, and I have such an appreciation for Facebook, and a lot of my work, my international work, comes from my associations in Facebook.
It's a great way to keep in touch.
It's
You're also
fantastic.
a big blogger. I was just reading this morning your very last blog post, which was about the dangers of practicing too much.
Oh,
I like that blog post.
Well, I mean, I've had Japanese students particularly who start cramming for exams, and they go 5 hours a day, then the next day 6, and the next day 7, and the next day 9.
Tuba players can play for 9 hours?
No, they can't. They become non-functional. And then they worry, and things get worse, and they practice harder, and they become non-functional. They actually destroy the tissue. It would be like a track star, a runner, a marathon runner, practice working out too much.
Yeah. You've got to keep an eye on those tuba players. I know they can go for pretty long
Well,
hours,
I mean,
much longer hours than we can.
That's true.
That's
That's
true.
true. And you can go longer hours than trumpet players.
Yeah, whether we do or not, I don't know, but I'm not sure about that. When we do Hangouts, there's always all sorts of, we couldn't do live today because Tim, my dear Tim Kelly, my wonderful webmaster, he's actually not in the office today, so we couldn't do live today, so we haven't got the live questions. But I did ask around the tuba community what they would want to know from you. I know what I want to know, we'll get onto that. But they are so grateful for everything online that you put. You have your master classes, you have your blogging, you keep in touch by Facebook. Basically, that the students all want to know your top tips for tuba playing. Let's get the 5 hottest tips for tuba playing. I know, it's always the same. I always get the mouthpiece questions. But you've already answered one. You say sing.
Yeah. Okay, another big focus for me is that breathing is part of the music. I've had students come to me and they insist that they have a breathing problem, and they don't. And once I convince them that breathing is part of the music, and the music needs to breathe also, nobody wants to hear a 20-minute phrase.
Can tuba players circular breathe?
Yeah, sure.
They can. Okay.
Sure. But the music needs to breathe. Breathing is part of the music. And sometimes when there are attack problems, it's always because of the breath that comes before the attack, which is out of rhythm. If you breathe on a beat, 1, 2, and it comes out beautifully every time. Not to stop the air. The air moves always. Never. Right there comes an incredible brass playing difficulties.
Which is usually caused by the brain, often thinking, oh.
Yeah. And it turns into nervous problems and neurosis and alcohol problems and psychological sessions, and it's all.
If they would only breathe.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds so simplistic, but I've never seen it fail. I've never seen this fail.
So singing, making the breath the part of the musical phrase. I'm not letting you out of these.
Yes.
Not practicing too much. Not going crazy about making yourself.
That's not a big deal.
That's not a big deal.
I think articulation is very important. In the languages of the world, linguists can't agree on how many consonants there are. Some say 100, some say 120. You know that because you speak that languages yourself, and some of them, they're all different. And so many brass players think it's duh and tuh.
Duh, tuh. It makes us brass players sound really intelligent. Brass playing's about duh and tuh.
Well, I always make that joke when I'm telling this in a master class. Once they get that idea, which is also what I did in Mexico with great success, because it came naturally. It's just natural. And if you come in after a beat, then take the breath after a beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Da 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 da.
Yeah.
And then, we all have our flexibility exercises.
There must be like a million different flexibility exercises for all the brass section. You hear different ones every day.
I make them do it with 6 different articulations. Total slur, ah. Breath and forced slur, ah. Trombone legato, I call it, da da da. Normal tongue, ta ta ta. Marcato tenuto quasi sinfonico. I call it marcato tenuto pesante cantabile. And, do flexibility exercises with that, right? Like you would play a Tchaikovsky symphony and staccato. And then that makes 6.
Yeah.
Okay, there's 120 consonants in languages, and articulation is the consonants of the musical language. So the more articulations that we have control, the more interesting we can
The music can be the
make
colors.
the music, and the more we can use that to communicate. I use the example, you know, when somebody doesn't use their consonants well, what happens? Well, when somebody talks the consonants very clearly, you know one thing that either they're not very, maybe they're stupid.
It might be the beer.
And maybe that problem. So, and I say, you don't want to sound stupid, do you? And then they get the idea.
And then they use their consonants. We Brits do like to use our consonants.
Yes, I know. I hear that all the time.
Can I get to a little bit of a controversial subject? So those were really great tips for the students. I mean, if you watch the master classes online, you will get all these fantastic tips. Best still, go to a live master class. Live is always better. So those would be the questions the student asks.
Let me quickly say, I have a master class DVD out called Tuba Profondo.
You do, yeah. And you can get it on your website.
Yes, you can find it on my website.
Yeah, so order it. It's great.
Yeah.
No, that's really definitely.
It's 2.5 hours long. Don't watch it all at once, please.
2.5 hour long masterclass. Goodness me. Well, yeah, but value for money, I'm sure.
I hope so.
Those were like the students' questions, and then I asked around a few professionals to say, you know, what do you think would be a good angle? And actually, a trombone player friend of mine came up with, I won't know names because I don't want to irritate anybody, but he actually said something very interesting. He said, there's been this tuba revolution over the last 20, 30 years, and tuba players have gone from the instrument that plays on the beat and the bass chords to these incredible, virtuosic, incredible solo guys. And most of them have been your students, you know, Sergio, Roland, Steve, really incredible players. And sometimes you find these days that these people, not these ones I've mentioned, of course, but this trombone player said he's had the experience that with some students that they've been able to play anything, but in the orchestra, they were pretty useless. Because they had all this virtuosic ability, but they hadn't actually done. I remember when I was in the youth orchestra of the British Youth Orchestra, John Fletcher made the tubas sit down every day, play on the beat, get faster, get slower. He really drilled them in rhythm, and these days, my trombone player friend had the feeling that most people were just playing fancy pieces, and I just wanted to ask you what you thought about this tuba revolution.
Maybe there's a proclivity in that direction. However, most of those players can be pretty good symphonic players. And, you know, if articulation is the consonants of the musical language, then the articulations that are necessary in the marcato, tenuto, pesante, cantabile style.
I haven't got that off by heart yet.
That I'm working on it too. That we use symphonically. We can't put it in a single category because you know better than most people that, you know, Bruckner and Tchaikovsky and Mahler are very different from each other, and just in their own pieces in one symphony they differ from section to section. So what you're describing probably is true somewhere, but I'm not so aware of it.
So do you put what is your emphasis once you get them singing and articulation and everything? A lot of orchestral excerpts. It's obviously, I mean, we had for our Tuba audition where Alexander von Puttkammer got the job, there were, he had to play the most incredible things that the string players had never actually heard, the Respighi, and he was there and he was boom, 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 you know, for ages, and people started giggling. They thought, you know, gosh, what do tuba players practice? And where did they practice this? at home for
Well,
the neighbors.
You know, that has to be practiced.
Yeah. But you have people practicing these days with all the party pieces a lot as well.
Party, you mean like virtuoso?
Yeah.
I think they have to do both. I think that that kind of style has to be worked on. There are certain etude books that deal with that style.
Any favorites apart from yours?
No, mine doesn't.
It doesn't.
No.
I'm sorry. I do admit I
Never mind.
haven't gotten to.
Oh, I wish I had brought you one.
Yeah, I would love that.
But there are studies that are orchestral in nature. Blazevich, for example, which is a standard staple. For
I have
tuba.
that one. I like to practice that.
Yeah, well, that has to be played like Tchaikovsky or sometimes Prokofiev. And what I avoid, and there are, I don't know if there are anymore, but I know that there were schools in the United States, another nameless, another thing that will stay nameless, where they would go to school for 4 years learning passages for auditions. That's crazy.
And that's all they learned, you mean?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what they worked on.
Yeah.
And that's a pathway to neurosis, absolutely, for sure.
That's not much fun either. I think
No.
instrument playing should be fun.
It's not healthy. You know, it's like eating, I don't know what, do you know what shredded wheat is?
I know what shredded wheat
Okay,
is.
not all the world knows what it is.
It's a breakfast cereal that if you don't put milk on it, it's really dry. And
yeah,
boring.
and that's like eating it without milk or sugar.
That's a very good analogy.
And,
No, well, that it was just I just thought there was an interesting view of things from my trombone player friend who will also remain nameless. Another guy I talked to a little bit about you, I met at the moment in Japan. It's quite incredible because we have at the same time we have the Concertgebouw, the Vienna Philharmonic, the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra, the Berlin Philharmonic. All these horn sections have all met, and we had a big party the other night of all the horns.
I'd like to have been there.
Yeah, and last night I met your good friend Perry. Perry, who's the tuba player, the principal tuba in the Concertgebouw Orchestra with a very difficult second name, Hogendijk. Can you say it better?
Perfect.
Is that right?
Hogendijk.
Hogendijk. Okay. And he was one of your students, and you are a total hero to him. And he said that the tuba world would actually just like to know your greatest inspirations. You know, where do you are a complete musician? He said you're not just a tuba freak. You get your inspiration from Pavarotti and singing. Tell us.
Sure, Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau, Pavarotti, you know, I mean any great player. Perlman. Yeah. You know, we can't get our inspiration only, I hate to say this word, and I use it rarely, from the tuba ghetto. We can't. It's just that's a tragedy if we do.
Do you think there's a danger that a lot of people do that? A lot of students stay in the tuba ghetto? If I'm allowed to say that?
Sure. In my school now, there's very little interchange between the tuba class and the other brass.
It's a shame.
You know, not so much brass choir. Maybe there's 2 brass quintets in the school. I coach one. Tuba ensemble, trombone ensemble, trumpet ensemble, horn ensemble, and symphony orchestra where they have maybe 20 or 25 rehearsals for a concert. And same with wind ensemble, and it sounds great. You know,
It's a lot of rehearsals.
25 rehearsals. You can make anything sound great, and my God, they do sound great.
But the influences, your musical influences, are very much outside the
There's
tuba.
no chamber music for mixed groups. You know, there's repertoire for tuba and cello. Unthinkable. They look at me like I'm crazy when I suggest
I think it's
it.
great.
Of course. And I mean, there's so many things. Tuba and woodwind quintet, and you know, and every combination we can think of. It's not done. We just don't do that.
Yeah. That's a shame because I think playing together is also a big inspiration. for students, and it's fun too.
There are problems
Yeah.
that have to be dealt with. I'll say one of the most frustrating things is after exams, the students gather around. They want to know my criticisms or my comments. I don't have the language facility, and they don't speak English well enough. But I have an iPad, and I keep it all, and I had somebody translate each one of them.
Fantastic.
And I made it available to them. And I got into very serious trouble.
Why is that?
They do not need your comments. They only need your score. So that's my one chip on my shoulder that I'll share.
Okay, I can understand that that's a chip on your shoulder. Because
Yeah.
I think
They do need.
They do. Yeah, students need input. On the other hand, and it's one thing that I saw you say often in your masterclasses, students need to learn to teach themselves, and that's what the teachers have to help them along the way. And you said that in a masterclass I saw online, that actually your job is the most important thing you can give is to help a student to be able to be their own best teacher.
They are the primary teacher. They determine what to practice, how long to practice, what needs work, how to fix it, where's the problem, how to fix it. And
Yeah.
it's all their responsibility. So that's our job as a guide, to try to lead them to being able to make those decisions, those so pedagogical decisions.
Okay, away from the pedagogical, because you were for so many years the leading tuba player ever. You started in Rochester. You went to Concertgebouw. Perry was telling me yesterday a bit about the history there. You were only there for 2 years, sadly.
It was 50 years ago.
Incredible.
I can't believe it.
Really, that's
Yeah, exactly.
But you can remember it like it was yesterday. You loved your time there.
Oh, it was magical. You know, I can remember the smell. I can remember sitting on the stage, taking my tuba out, and seeing Mahler's name and Bruckner's name and Brahms, and and all the box seats had this names
Yeah.
on the wall. You've seen it.
Yeah, I read them all during Bruckner symphonies.
Me too. And I remember just picking up and playing some notes and saying,
What a whole.
it was magical.
So why did you leave? I mean, LA Philharmonic is also, you know, you were there for 25 years, a long time in a job. What made you go back? Was it because it was home?
I think in my mind I've always wanted to go to Los Angeles Philharmonic. That was sort of my goal. And it's hard to say. If I know now if I knew then what I know now, would I have done that? Maybe. I made contacts with things in California that I would not have done in the Concertgebouw. The Concertgebouw was a wonderful experience, and Europe was a wonderful continent, and Holland was a wonderful country. And, you know, going back to Los Angeles, I really went through, I guess, something of a withdrawal. I missed it so much, so very, very much. And
There's a great photo of you online, standing in front of a plane.
Yeah.
You know the one?
Yes.
You can Google it. You look amazing. You look like a film star, and you're waving goodbye, and you're leaving for Amsterdam on the plane. You know the one I mean?
Yeah,
It's a
sure.
great photo. I think we'll try and find it and put it into.
Okay.
Just. But it must have been quite an adventure in those days. There was no Facebook, no email, no nothing to keep in touch with your
No,
family
I think
at home.
I was one of the first Americans to go to Europe, and then there was a tidal wave, an avalanche of them. And
So this is a terrible question, and as an interviewer, I hate to ask it, but it's what people want to know. You had so many highlights. You can't actually pinpoint highlights, but is there something you can say during your time in the LA Philharmonic? Yeah, I remember that, and that. Musical highlights. Johnny Carson show must have been a highlight. It's on.
yeah, you know, I mean, I had watched that show so many times that I didn't feel so strange out there. It's like, okay, this is the Carson show. Mamma mia, it's me here in front of me.
You were so cool. You sat down there and just played. I don't know how you did it.
Well,
And the conductors you worked with in the LA Phil time?
well, of course, Zubin Mehta. and Giulini, and a conductor, maybe you know him, Sonderling.
Yes, yes.
I thought he was wonderful.
I did too. He always told little stories with
Yeah.
a, you know, sort of imaginary little stories about what's happening. Like there's a deer coming out of the forest, he'd always say in the Scherzo Bruckner form. We all knew he was going to say that every time it came. Did he tell little stories in those days too?
Yeah, but I don't remember any of them right this minute. Stravinsky.
And you played on the Stravinsky?
So frequently, not only in the LA Philharmonic, but in the Columbia Symphony Orchestra, maybe 50 times played those recordings that he did. It usually...
What was he like as a conductor? Or did it matter?
It was very interesting. He was very feeble until he got angry, and then from about 5'4" he turned 6'6". His fists went up in the air and came crashing down on the music stand, and he had a voice, you know, like one of the greatest bass baritones in the world.
Oh wow. Sounds a little bit like Cat's-Child, like his the monster
Yeah.
in the Firebird.
Yeah. He was magnificent.
Yeah. So when you look up Roger Bobo on Wikipedia, one of the things that you read in there is that you played on Indiana Jones. Now that's quite impressive. That must have been a highlight.
Yeah. I loved to play for John Williams. And John Williams, Nelson Riddle, and Quincy Jones. All of those guys were just wonderful to
What
play.
amazing people you met there.
Yeah. And then I did the John Williams Tuba Concerto with...
Your concerto.
Well, you know, I played it several times with John Williams and also with Isefeka Solomon. And he was wonderful.
Must have been quite a heyday. All these studio recordings you did as well. The other film, every film in the book.
That's interesting because, you know, I thought my job, I was, sadly, I think I was a little bit of a snob. I was the tubist in the LA Philharmonic, and I played these studio jobs for money.
Good money, I heard.
Yeah, okay, you know. And then I moved to Europe, and I quit playing the tuba. And what I missed were the studio jobs.
Really? Not the Bruckner and the Mahler.
Well, of course I missed that. I missed that. But I went to a studio recording at Sony Studios a year ago last March. When I was out in LA. I was doing master classes and teaching private lessons in LA for a week. And I was really nostalgic. I was so touched, and it was so good to see all these people and the atmosphere and the intensity and the level of playing. They were great. And talk about speed. It took them one reading and they had it.
Wow.
And unfortunately, I don't remember the name of the composer, but he was very, very high level.
Great.
And
so what do you do when you aren't teaching or organizing your tuba life? Do you watch all these movies with all these great soundtracks, or are you a movie watcher? You like eating teriyaki?
yeah, I think there's something. For example, today we're going to a teppanyaki restaurant that has the best steak in the world, and I've made reservations for that.
There is when I asked a few of your dear students, who are now very famous students, I said, what should I talk to Roger about? They said nothing to do with the tuba. They said ask about food, wine, and women. So I think I think we'll save that for the next time.
I had a very interesting conversation with Christian Lindbergh last week. We were working together in Mexico. And I said, I've got a problem with country, trying to find a country that I want to stay, trying to find a university where I want to stay and trying to find a woman that I want to stay with. Those three things, I just can't settle down.
Well, Roger, I wish you...
It's not funny.
It's not funny, it's not funny, but I think it's incredibly sweet because I'm sure you're going to find all three of them.
Oh, speriamo. Okay.
You're going to find all three of them, and as soon as you do, then I want you back here to tell me all about those, because actually that's probably what most of the people really want to hear, tuba stuff, mouthpieces, singing. They want to hear about the real juicy stuff. Roger, thank you so much for being on the Horn Hangouts. It's been a total pleasure to meet you and a real honor, and you've done amazing stuff for the whole musicians world, the tuba world. You're an incredible individual and an inspiration to many. And
well,
we're so lucky to have you here
thank
today.
you so much, and what you're doing is amazing too. So
thank
you, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you.